Sir Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Well, good morning or afternoon now. It's 12:02. Ready for another good show. I have Adam Russell and Victoria Johnson, well-known council members, here to talk about the taxes and budgets, which got me all confused, to tell you the truth. All the numbers and this and that and these other classifications. So I'll let y'all, spell it out for us and fill it in, just how much you're going to gouge us this year, apparently, according to some. Actually, it's your cutting rates is what I understand, right?
We did.
Okay, good. So we're going to talk about that and maybe clear some misconceptions, because I saw some commentary and I'm like, on the usual suspects, Facebook and whatever else. I'm like, wait a minute.
But it's confusing. I mean, if it's something that you don't do day in and day out, and it's sometimes hard to follow the trail of where does this lead? What does this actually mean? And maintenance and operation versus debt rate and this and that. There's just little nuances to it. And dorky people like me like to dig into the details. Mr. Banker here really dug into details. And that's what the best part of there being 7 of us. We all have different perspectives and different backgrounds and understandings of things.
Was this eye-opening for you, Adam? I mean, or, because now you've been privy to stuff maybe that, I don't know, I don't know how much access people have to the budgetary process.
The whole thing.
Yeah.
Come to all of our meetings.
Yeah. Well, I know there's a lot of open meetings, but, you're probably getting insights and information that maybe that didn't float out there in the real world, so to speak. And now it's probably an eye-opening experience.
It was.
Yeah. But
there's a lot of things that you find out. Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. you try your best to maybe think the city can run like a business, and I think in some aspects it probably can, but for the most part it's government, so you can't really.
Well,
we just have so many stipulations. It's like you can't, this big expense is coming up. Well, at your home budget, you're like, I'm going to buy a new mattress. And so you're saving up. But like the state doesn't let us plan necessarily. Like we can't put money back for years. We can't make decisions for future councils. There's just so many nuances that kind of strap us into making the decisions that we do, especially like when it comes to debt, because we're a growing community. People a couple of years ago were like, no more debt. And it's like, well, we're leveraging the funds that we have currently to plan for future because we know it's coming. But we have restrictions as far as how much we can plan and how much we can set back, because the state just doesn't let us do that like you do in your home budget.
Right. Well, speaking of debts, I have them. So let's talk about the sponsors. You like to segue in there. CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Thank you for what you do. Check out their website for the plans, the classes, the trainers, the whole thing. It's well supervised, well lit. It's a great place to go for a serious workout. Also, Shandy, thank you for what you do for the community. She's still doing real estate. I know that y'all are pretty clued into the real estate market, and so is she. But, it's slowing down in some areas, but she's still closing houses. So we're still
Burleson
selling.
is the place to be.
Exactly right. I mean, even you might read in the papers otherwise, Burleson and this area, Johnson County, is still really growing. Godly and Joshua are as well. So talk to Shandy if you want to move into this area. Also, a friend Otto at our place. Hope you're doing well. It's always a great place. I'll be seeing you sometime later this week, no doubt. I haven't been there in a couple of weeks. I'm starting to get gravy withdrawals. So it's time to go get some chicken fried steak or whatever.
And honey butter.
And honey butter and all that. Oh, it's really great for my diabetes, too.
Sorry.
Yeah, but, I take the appropriate precautions. Our Place Restaurant on the highway in Ellsbury. Great place, great food, great staff. Also, thank you to Chris and Nathan over at Wild Cigar. Great place to watch a ball game. You have a drink, have a cigar. You can actually hear yourself think. It's a great place. Also, it's a good place for meetings as well. They have a conference room that you could rent out for, I don't know, maybe they'll lend it to you if you go and have a couple of drinks outdoors. So who knows? So talk to them about that. And also a nice patio. And now that the weather's reasonable, it's a good place to contemplate life's mysteries. Also, a friend Tiffany and Nico over at Local Life, the magazine's out. Check out locallifetx.com for current updates and also some current specials, things like that. Goes to 30,000 homes. Also, she's involved with some stuff coming up. I believe there's
There's Pooch Parade that'll be coming up.
And
the Harvest Moon Festival.
Right.
In addition to the awesome magazines she puts out, she has been helping with community events and providing opportunities for entertainment and activities and Love that piece of Burleson.
Yeah, it's something that has really developed strongly over the last 5 or 6 years. You know, it's really gotten to the point now where we just have events almost every weekend. Also, Burleson Buzz, have y'all talked to Cody yet? He's probably going to talk to y'all sometime.
He does.
He does. Y'all talk to him a little bit. Well, he was always reporting about y'all's meetings, and I appreciate that because we don't really have a whole lot of local reporting going on. So I appreciate the fact that he does that for us. And, you know, and I subscribe, and it's very cheap. It's, you know, about a cup of coffee, and that's about it. I mean, so you got to give it a shot. Here I am going to be posting to everybody that's clamoring for your show here. And boom, we're done. And also, one thing I want to throw a curveball at you because you brought up something about the state of Texas doesn't let us do this. I was going to ask you about that as well because the last legislature passed significant laws, and maybe if we get to that at the time. I know that it's still very nebulous about what that really means, and you know, and I don't know if the city attorneys filled y'all in more, but I've read in the paper a few things. But let's talk about the budget first. Sure. When we're talking about taxes, you know, one thing that has to be kind of reemphasized over and over is you can lower the tax rates, but their bill actually will go up. But you have nothing really to do with that, right? I mean, in a sense, because you don't handle the appraisals.
Appraisal district.
Yeah, the appraisal district.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say you cut the taxes, right? How much did you cut them by?
About 2 cents.
About 2 cents. Okay. And should Burleson resident be expecting a higher tax bill?
Well, like Mayor Pro Tem McClendon said during the meeting, is if your appraisal came in exactly the same as it was last year, then your taxes would actually go down. And if it came in higher, then it would go down, or it would not go up as much as it would have had we kept the tax rate the same.
Right. But y'all still get the flack for it, right?
Correct. Because overall, the gross, I think, was around 8% across the board, across the entire city of going up. That includes commercial, residential.
Will the city of Burleson be getting more revenue this year than last?
Yes.
And why is that a problem for some people?
And
at least that's what I'm reading in some of the more.
I think it was about 2.3 million new, but out of the 2.3, 1.5 was new construction.
So, I mean, we're a growing community, and we have more expenses every budget. You know, we need and want more officers on the street. We this starting October 1, we will go live with our first ambulatory service. And so that required adding additional firefighters, an additional dispatcher, a contract with a medical director. There's, we learned throughout our budget process, we should be repairing 5,000 feet a year of sidewalk, and we have only been budgeting for about 500 feet a year of sidewalk.
Really?
So, I mean, we're growing and for, we're a great place to live, and people are eager to move here. And it's because of the wonderful amenities that we offer, but we have to keep those up. And we want to have a nice, clean, safe community to live, work, play, but that requires funds. I mean, it's competitive to keep officers and firefighters, and, the city employs almost 300 people or somewhere around that number. And we have everything from engineers that design the sidewalks and streets to public safety. We have the animal catchers. We have such a wide variety, but it's competitive to keep those people. And so we have to have competitive salaries. We have to have competitive benefits. We have to, every year look at what should be repairing, what should we be building, adding to, does a road go from 2 lanes to 4 lanes? All of that requires funds.
Yeah, on top of the 2% decrease, you also increased the homestead exemption about 15%.
Well, 1%.
1%.
So it was a 2-cent decrease on the tax rate. And we think this is our 3rd year for our homestead. So 3 years ago, we passed a homestead. So if you own and live in your home, this is not for those individuals that have additional properties that they rent, but for your homestead, you can file for an additional exemption, and you can file, you get an exemption from the county, and you can now, with the past 3 years, can get one with our city as well. And so that went up an additional percent.
Okay. And also the fact is that it like school taxes, city taxes freeze at 65 when you turn 65, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this increase in revenue is not going to be done because our older citizens are going to have to pay more. Their taxes are frozen.
Their taxes are frozen.
Right. All right.
And it's not easy. I mean, we all know, especially when the economy has been a roller coaster in the last couple of years, especially since COVID. Every home has to make cuts and, make adjustments to their home budget. And likewise, our budget process is 6 months long. I think we start meeting and talking about it in February. And all of these meetings are public. We encourage citizens to be involved the whole way through, because each time, starting in February, we have departmental presentations. And so the department's going to come and say, this is what we had. This is what we have this year. This is what our need is. This is what we're looking to add, or this is where we might be able to cut back some. And that's not just in its projects, it's people, it's time, there's so much that goes into any one particular department's budget. But the largest piece of our budget is public safety, and that's critical. I mean, I want to live in a community. I have little kids. Adam has little kids. Well, we chose this community because we're safe, because ultimately when we pick up the phone, if we ever have to call 911, it gets responded to. There's just pieces of this community that we have to keep up and want to keep up so that it continues to be an enjoyable place to live. But each department comes and says, what are they doing? And that's where citizens should be involved, the whole process of this is what we want to see. This is what you're doing plenty of. This is what you're not doing enough of. And we send out a survey, and we looked at that survey. It played a role in, I think the top 3 things were they wanted to see streets fixed. So we put more money towards streets. We heard about sidewalks. So every year we're adding additional sidewalks. And another thing they wanted to see were more officers. And in order to do that, we have, it's not just paying for an additional officer. It's the equipment that comes with them. They basically have to have a mobile office. So that's another vehicle. It's all the equipment that goes with it. It's, ensuring that they have the equipment that they wear. And so there's a lot of pieces that go into each and every decision that we make, and we encourage citizens to be involved. And I commend those that did. They emailed, they Facebook messaged us, they showed up to meetings. And
I saw that at the last one, showing up to the meetings. By the way, I had a call from the United States. Joe, I'll call you back in a minute.
You're such a mess.
Well, it's so right there, United States. I figured he never just
could have been the post office.
No.
You might have a box to pick
it
up.
It happens all the time.
Stop trying to act so important.
Yeah, and he said, Joe says I butt dialed. Sorry, man. No joke.
Yeah, we did have some we had a citizen and some neighboring citizens show up at our first public. So so a city manager builds a budget, all these meetings build up to city manager's proposal to us, and then it turns over to council, and then we get this enormous binder and we read through it all. But it's information we've digested over several months. And then there's a proposed tax rate and proposed revenue increase, proposed budget, and that there were some individuals who showed up to that first reading and voiced their opinion. And
I was referring to that. I thought certainly they're within their rights, of course, and you want participation. That's not the issue. I thought their comments were misleading because it made it sound like y'all were raising the tax rates.
Yes, they did make that.
Yeah, and I was
statement.
like, wait a minute,
we didn't raise taxes.
Right.
Your appraisal may raise, and we have no control over that. That's a separate governing board and body.
Well, I just thought, wait a minute. What I'm hearing is you're talking about cutting the rates, and they got these protests saying you're raising taxes and we're not going to let you get away with it and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, they're not getting away with a thing. I mean, they're cutting taxes, and it's like, if you make more money, you're going to pay more taxes. I mean, that's what happens with us as a community. There's a reason why our appraisals are going up, and it's not a bad reason. It's because people are moving here. Businesses are moving here. And the fact that y'all have cut the tax rates, probably if you had kept them at the previous levels, then we're talking about pretty high tax bills, I would imagine. Adam, is there anything in that budget process that surprised you, or in the budget itself that surprised you?
There were some items that we had to include in this budget that was like a budget amendment for last year because we had to get competitive at the police level. And I can't remember, was it fire level too? We had vacancies. Yeah, both. We try to be in the top quartile of all the cities in our area, and we were not there.
Wow,
and we were not able to fill the vacancies and everything. And so last year, after the budget got passed for 22-23, the city council did a supplemental of about $1 million to get that pay where it needed to be. And then we absorbed that in this year's budget.
To kind of circle back to something that kind of just occurred to me, the vote on this budget was 7-0, right? And I don't think anybody's going to confuse Chris Fletcher with wanting higher taxes. But the fact it's a unanimous vote tells me that y'all, on most issues are pretty much on the same page.
Right.
You might have differed here and there on this, aspect of it, or I wish I had more money for that, or wish we could have cut some money from there and that kind of thing. That's the budgetary process. But I just thought a 7-0 vote, I think, was very, very significant. And I think the community needs to see that, because y'all are fairly diverse as a board, as a council. And for y'all to come to a consensus on that, and the way that you came to that consensus, I think, speaks to y'all's credit. And I just think that any kind of Facebook criticism, whatever else, I think is ill-founded or ill-informed or maybe self-serving. And that's my hot take for today. But I think y'all did a great job. And
Thank you.
well, and it's like school budgets. There's always going to be somebody who wants something more or less. But that's the democratic process. Would you want to go through it again, Adam? You got two more times at least.
Yeah, that's fine. They say the biggest bang for your tax buck, so to speak, is your city taxes, because of all the things that you get with that tax bill. And public safety, you get parks, you get all that. And just looking at the city manager's budget, the average price of a house looked like it went up about 10 or 11%, a little over 10.
Oh, I get those reports.
And the average tax bill, based on what we passed, would go up about $100 a year. A year. So divide that by 12, it's about $8 a month. A little more than that. And then you see we have these meetings all summer long of every department, and you see the breakdown. Okay, this is where the money's going to be spent across the board, and these are the things that we need to bring in.
Well, Sarah Carlson says, thanks for clearing up all the facts surrounding this issue. She and I kind of conversed about it as well, and we were just like, they're cutting their rates, yet, people are complaining. Yep. And I just, I guess that comes with the territory, but I think I'd like to save my powder on complaining on stuff that, is more legitimate. And I just think I think y'all did it as well as can be. I mean, when you have a growing community, you're going to have pressures, and there's going to be something that's probably, somebody's going to feel left out. I mean, I teach that in my government class, talk about the pluralist model and how groups compete for scarce resources, and they have to, come to some sort of compromise. And I use y'all and the school board as an example in my classes about how limited resources demand compromise. This isn't the federal government. And is there one area, let's go start with you, Adam. I know what you're going to say. Which area would you like to have seen more funding for? Yeah, but let's try, Adam, what would you like to see more funding for?
It's probably going to be the streets, because we're waiting to get this survey back of how the streets are, the condition of them. So I would like to have seen a little more money for that. But like I said, we do these meetings during the summer. We don't get a lot of people showing up to have different things.
Well,
and, of course,
exciting.
I appreciate the dialogue. Yeah. But the thing is, if you're going to cut, then where would you cut? I don't know. The suggestions aren't there of what would need to be cut to lower it even more.
Right. So. I mean, you can't exactly take it from public safety nor sanitation or something like that, because then they'd have people upset about that.
I mean, speaking of roads, we're about 20 years behind where we should be. I mean, how long have we wanted 174 at Elk Drive, where it goes down to 2 lanes? How long have we wanted that expanded to 3 on each side? And we're finally making progress on that. Like, that's finally coming. It's actually coming down the pipe, and we can see the light, on that one. Traffic builds up. Gosh, when school lets out, if you want to go to HEB,
forget
Target,
about it.
Oh my. You're going to sit at Elk for 3 or 4 light cycles.
Oh, I go around. I go through 714 down to the country.
Most people
by
do.
Russell Art Farm.
Yes.
Or I just don't go get groceries.
Or don't go get groceries. You hold on.
Yeah.
Gosh forbid you left out one ingredient for dinner and you're like, nope, I guess we're having leftovers.
Yeah.
I mean, I while everyone knows my heart is in parks, I'm really thrilled at the improvements that we've made over the last couple of years. We've, added the splash pad, added some new elements to parks, and in its updating process, I'm very proud of the pour in place surfaces that we started adding. And I think the goal is to add them to all parks from here on so that some element of every single park is all inclusive. But I agree with Adam because I want to stay in this town. I like doing my shopping here. I want to grab food quicker than I end up getting to sometimes. If we didn't get to plan dinner that night, racing across town to try and feed 2 babies before I have to bathe them and put them down, we're behind in where we need, in our road infrastructure and getting to where we want to be across town. I think there's a lot of new projects that we could consider if funding was available. We have to look for how to alleviate more traffic off of 174, if and when we add those, or we're going to add the 3rd lane on 174, but we're still going to have to, imagine while that's under construction for 18 months,
I know.
we will have to be redirected and people are not going to be happy, but the end goal will be nice. But still, there's a lot of cars on that roadway.
Well, you never did tell me what you would. I was going to guess parks.
That's what I said. While I love parks, I think we've made a lot of progress, and I agree with Adam. I wish that there was more funding, and we are applying for and being very competitive for state and federal funding. I serve on the COG board, and I'm a part of a lot of those conversations to try and make ourselves competitive for those regional dollars, because things that impact Burleson, like 174, and that they also impact Keene, Joshua, Godley, Cleburne. And so trying to make arguments for how some of our transportation projects would benefit regional partners as well. So we're doing our best to vie for other funding sources. But if there was more money, that's definitely where I would want to direct it, is roads.
Yeah. No, it's just interesting because that's been a common thing. I've talked to several of y'all on the council for a good bit of this show's history, and it always seems to come back to infrastructure like that. It's going to be been a real problem, because we just can't keep up and all this other business, and it is what it is. I guess. You could live in a community where it's declining and you'd have those issues to deal with, you have layoffs and things like that. So I'd rather have these problems, but still it's a hassle, because everybody knows the issues are just, the money isn't going to be there for everything.
Well, sometimes I don't know that it's connected, which is why, Adam said he appreciates the dialogue. I do as well. Cause sometimes it's like, oh yeah, when someone asks me, why do you like local government? And I say, it's the closest to the people. It's the streets that we're driving on, the sidewalks that we're walking on, the parks that our kids are playing in. And then it's like, oh yeah, that's where, I didn't realize that. And then it encourages that individual to be involved, vote, participate in local elections, participate in local dialogue, come to council meetings, because this is impacting the way you live your daily life. When you're taking your kiddo to school, you want streets to get there, and you don't want to have everyone on the exact same route that backs up and you sit there for hours. This is stuff that matters, and the state and federal government are just, one more step removed. But the businesses that we invite to our community and look appealing to, all of that impacts the way you live your daily life.
Well, before I go to the second round of commercials, let's kind of summarize the budget and the taxes before, and kind of put this one aside, because I got a couple other issues I'd like to talk to you about. So y'all summarize the budget and the taxes so it could be succinct for people to understand, and when people hopefully access this show, they could share that portion of it.
So, we made the decision this year to you're capped at the state level at 3.5% for your M&O, which is your maintenance and operations. Well, we have a lot of things coming online. We've got the ambulances coming on. The police officers are needing new firearms because they've reached the end of their service life. There's some upgrades for the fire department too. They have these Bluetooth masks that they can actually talk to each other with their mask on instead of trying to talk on the radio while the smoke and everything's going on. We had other items in the budget. You can see on the supplemental package things that were needed. And so we decided going forward with all the growth that the city is having, we need to set this budget at a growth level, which is the 3.5% increase. And so,
It's the most we can capture, and we all agree, all 7 of us agreed to respond to the growth and the needs. We were in agreement that we should capture what the state allows us, the maximum that it does.
But at the same time, we ended up cutting the rate because the appraisals were going up. And so we decided to cut it down. But I'd say that if you look at this budget and you can see all the supplementals, so the supplementals, these are extra from, if you take last year's budget and you move it over, this is the extra stuff.
In addition to.
So those are the supplemental. If you can look at the list and see all these things, like we're going to have a facilities master plan where we're going to put all the city buildings and things, and we're going to do a plan for them and how long are they in their service life and see where they are, because right now we don't have that.
And at max build out, what does that look? Like what at the most police officers that the PD could ever need, how much space do they need for public works with the, all the equipment and personnel that they may ever need? What does that look like? Because sometimes we feel like we're just shooting from our hip. Like, we feel cramped. Should we look at a new building, or, what does this look like? And so planning is important. And I think we all value like having something to fall back on and go, look, we did this study. It's showing us at max capacity. So can this building last us this much longer? And then we move into something potentially in 10 years.
So I think if you want a concise thing, it was this year with this council, we decided to look forward and plan for the growth that we know is already here. And we talked about that before the election, the growth that's been here for 20 years at 5% a year, 3 or 5. And then now we're positioning the city to do this extra forward-thinking planning to see where we will end up at full build-out. And then now we have the tools to get there. So this year was just kind of a catch-up year, and then start looking forward.
I think y'all did an outstanding job. Because I am somewhat aware, not to y'all's degree certainly, but I am aware of the detail and the grind and all the factors. And basically, it's like if you put more money here, you might have to take money out of there, and somebody's going to be affected by that. And it's some hard decisions. And I appreciate y'all making those decisions. And I think people need to evaluate what y'all have done as a whole, as opposed to some minute aspect of the budget. I mean, I'm more familiar with school budgeting issues. Sure. It's the same process.
It is.
Same complaints, whatever. But let's talk about people that nobody complains about, and that's these round of sponsors. These are all my B&I friends as well. Southern Gym over at the new store or the new location. I think Miss Martha needs a trip, don't you think, Adam?
I made a trip
Did you?
a couple of months ago.
Did you?
So,
Okay,
yes,
good for you. Well, she has
first
to
of
put
many,
up with all
I'm
that.
sure.
Well, it's a very nice store. You may remember my wife works there. Except this week she's out of town. But as far as Christmas, you think, wow, it's mid-September. Gayla's asked me if you're going to have like repairs or special jobs or designs, the sooner the better, because if you wait until like the first week of December, you may not get it in time. And so that it would be good if you had something like you want to give grandma's ring repaired to your loved one or whatever, or something to your daughter or whatever. It's good. It's not too early to start the laundry with the jewelry.
She knows.
Okay. So it's really, they got a lot of stuff going on, and she's going to be in the show in about 5 weeks or so.
Fun.
Well, I see most of these people in the second round every Wednesday at my B&I meeting, so I'll talk to her tomorrow
Are those
again.
meetings open?
Yes.
Cool.
We have, visitors, but as far as like nonprofit visitors or city council, Gabrina's been there before. As far as city-related people, I can't remember any member of the council being there, but they're certainly welcome. But so you can talk about that. So anytime it's over at Old South at 8:30 on Wednesday mornings, or 8:45 to be exact. Also, thank you to Old Pro Roofing, John Williams, 817-734-2756. So come check out your roof, give you the straight scoop on the story if you need repairs. If you don't. They're just about now starting to catch up a little bit from what happened 2 months ago with that hailstorm. But they were swamped for a while, and they're still doing pretty good business. I can drive down my street and I see about 4 of those signs up. So 2756. I'll say it again because I messed up. 817-734-2756. Also, this is a Thrive. It's a business center for everything you want to do. It's not just social media, even though that's a piece of it. It's also get your business out there. It's promotions. It's email and communication systems. It's billing systems. It's calendars, the whole thing. A lot of us at BNI use this to kind of keep our business coordinated. It's like a total tool for coordinating businesses and also getting the word out there. And it's more than just search engine operations and things of that nature. It's the whole package. So there you are. Dee Dee Simpson will be on the show in a couple of weeks. She's the one you talk to. So call her at 520-955-7860. Also, Stop Restoration, Lisa and Moore Smith. If you have damage in your home, what always think about damage? When you think about it, some catastrophic event, bad weather or something like that. They do a lot of stuff in terms of hot water heater leaking and it's causing mold damage, or your shower stall tiles loose and it's causing damage, or also biohazards like hoarding and then other types of things of that nature, like. Somebody's trying to sell a house and the cat lady lived there and it's all full of cat stuff. And so they have to do that kind of thing. And it's just a very wide ranging stuff that they do. Very good people, Morris and Lisa Smith. And also, if you're looking for mortgage, U-Mortgage, Candy Gal, 817-925-2661. She's here in town over at the B&G building. She's in that building, that standalone building at the south. And so 817-925-2661. If you want to talk about mortgages, and she works for all the mortgage companies, so to speak. She'll find you the best rates. All right. Next Thursday, a couple of days now, we're going to have people that really are going to need some publicity. And I'm going to talk more about them towards the end. And I just want to kind of tag this along with the promotions. We're going to have about 7 nonprofits on at one time. They're not going to be, all at one time. They'll be taking turns, but there's a lot of needs in the community. But I guess before I get into that, I did want to ask you one thing I've been reading about, and that is some of the restrictions the state of Texas is putting on all communities in Texas. The article in the Dallas paper a couple of weeks ago was about how the city of Lancaster wanted to have certain standards for construction and builders and remodelers and whatever else, and they couldn't do it.
Correct.
Because the city asked more than what the state was requiring.
Yes.
And the state said, you can't do that.
Yeah. They did that a couple of sessions ago.
Well, they now it's gone to court. It's called the Death Star bill because now the city really can't do nearly as much as they can at the municipal level because of those bills.
Yes. Every session, there's a lot. For as much as they talk about limited government, they sure love to remove and take over things that municipalities and school districts can do. So every year, we get a briefing on, or every session you get a briefing on, how are the bills that are being kicked around going to impact your ability to set policy for your community. And a lot of it, you think about, and everyone kind of has a dog in the fight, right? When it comes to building, those builders want to be able to put up a structure that is, makes the most sense financially to them. But we want the structure to fit, especially in an area like Old Town. We want to preserve its look, and we want buildings and facilities that come into there to look like they belong in Old Town. And so we might want to have restrictions of the types of materials that you use. But then the state legislature says, well, no, like you're being too restrictive. You're being big government. Back off and let them just, put up a plywood building or, a shed. And so, there's certain unfortunately, for Old Town, there's a stipulation with that one because it's a designated. There's special criteria that we were able to, but there's other parts of town where we cannot be restrictive on the types of materials that are used, and so someone could put up, something that's leaning and, this fit my bill and it, it's what I could afford, but it doesn't necessarily stand up to the integrity of the rest of the community, or the longevity of the materials that you used may not withstand. So there's give and take, and sometimes, someone's going to bear the brunt of that, and it's going to be the whole community that drives by and sees a subpar building potentially because the state government decided we couldn't restrict materials.
The thing that came to my mind after I read about this article, the story was basically this woman wanted to get her fence repaired, and she couldn't because City of Lancaster wanted to put some restrictions on who did it, and she wanted to have it done in a certain way, but she couldn't get it done.
Yeah,
without a lot of hassle and and waivers and whatever else. I'm thinking apartments more than I'm thinking about like old town businesses or something else. I'm thinking about, that's always been a problem is, you build these new apartments and they look good for a few years but there's very little that seems like Burleson can do to make the landlords keep it up to speed and decent and well kept. And now it seems like even less. We have less control over that. And I'm afraid people are going to say, well, then we're not going to have apartments at all. And that's a real problem. Also, we talked about this many times in our show.
We cannot say we cannot have apartments.
Right. Well, there's people that think you can. And I've said to them before, then welcome to the courts, because the federal government will take you to court.
But we can have zoning that helps them stay like in a particular area that maybe is close to 35 or close to 121. And we may not be able to but you're right. Like, especially when you think of a structure that gets as much traffic as an apartment building, say, does. People, the turnover, and it needs to be able to withstand wear and tear, and being able to specify like we would prefer these types of building materials because they withstand a lot better than this other material.
But we prefer is not the same thing as mandate, is it?
Yeah. So now we get to gently.
You see it. Well, in the bank situations, I'm sure you deal with this all the time. And people come in
when it
for
comes to loans
and whatnot. Yeah, they
Fair
probably
point.
and they say, we want a loan for this, that, and the other. And you say, well, I'm also a city council member. We'd like to see this. And they'll say, then where's your wallet, right? I mean, they know now. These developers know that your hands are tied in terms of asking anything more than the state does, and the state does not ask much, okay? And that bothers me a lot, and they did this with the schools. I mean, I lived through that and still do, but when I was with schools, they come in, the state of Texas come in and mandate all this stuff and then go find the money.
Yeah,
go find, unfunded mandates. And they would, and also not just curriculum issues, but just about every facet of school that used to be handled when I first got here in 1988, handled by school board and superintendent and whatever else. About, I would say 2/3 or more of that's been taken out of their hands.
Now there is an element of, we don't want to create more red tape. That isn't the goal either. And we're not trying to discourage development. You don't want to say, well, I want this building resurrected in all gold. And if you can't make that happen,
Make
then
it
don't
look like
build
Trump
it here.
Tower, in other words?
There is, you do need healthy parameters. You don't want to discourage development. You don't want to make it impossible to build in your town. We want good growth. We want awesome businesses that people enjoy shopping and eating and those kind of things. But we also want it to fit the integrity of the town and withstand wear and tear and look nice. And so there has to be a balance. And I think that's when the thing I appreciate the most about the local level of government is I'm right here speaking one-on-one with the developer to say, I think this would really fit well. I'm using myself as an example, but I do not get into the nitty-gritty. That's the staff's job. But like, look around you in this particular block where you're intending to build X, Y, or Z building. Does it fit? Will it match? Is it going to stand out and not be appealing? Or is it going to look like it was meant to be there? And how do we make this block look appealing to more businesses coming to join you? Because obviously if other partner businesses are next to you, then you're going to get more shoppers. You're going to get more foot traffic. And so I think it's looking at those kind of pictures, but we're here on the ground, boots on the ground, to be able to converse and work alongside developers and architects and those people that are making these kind of decisions versus that the state level's removed. They're not here day to day looking at Burleson, Texas and saying, oh, I see why this fits or it doesn't.
Well, is it possible that they're overreacting to what they see in the bigger metropolitan areas, particularly Austin? I have to say, some of the ideas in Austin really do bug me. The defunding issues and how they
Sure.
transfer money out of law enforcement and put it into other issues. And now Austin is gone chaotic. And so I think what happens is they look at Austin, that big blue dot in this red state, and they're going to make sure, by God, that that's not going to transfer to other places. And I think they overdid it.
Yeah, it's painting everybody with the same brush, and we're not all the same.
A red brush, I would say.
I'm not going to pick colors, but I'm just going to say it's really easy to be like, let me make this decision, and it fits everyone, but it doesn't. And that's, as much as we can sit here and say citizens should get involved in local politics, write and contact your state legislators as well, because and the decisions that they're making then trickle down, and we're stuck enforcing.
Do y'all have a contact or a ongoing relationship with like Dwayne Burns or now Senator King and, other state officials? Do y'all talk to them?
I know.
I haven't talked to him since I've been on. I've talked to him before.
Yeah, but I just wonder if you go, hey, Dwayne, what are you thinking here? I mean, come on, you're hurting us.
That's the plan. Next session is we used to go down to Austin and just go say, hi, we're here. And that stopped for a little bit, but we're planning on going back.
You really do need to do that.
I think it's on an individual basis. Like both Adam and I have an interest in that. And it helps for them to have those relationships like, hey, this is going to impact a city. And, Adam, Russell's in Burleson. Let me call him and say, how does, or, if Adam feels comfortable enough reaching out and saying, it's about relationships ultimately.
Well, I've heard Dwayne Burns is a good representative and all that. I haven't heard any criticism of that nature that he ignores his constituents. So, yeah, I'd think give him a call. That kind of thing. I don't know Mr. King at all, so I don't even know what his reputation is. But Dwayne Burns seems to have a good reputation. So, yeah, I would encourage the city of Burleson to have ongoing contact. Another thing that we've talked about before, kind of a side issue, you and I have talked about homelessness in this community. Now, I mentioned that show earlier about the nonprofits coming on, and 3 of them directly deal with people that are living out of their cars or living in very temporary situations, going from couch to couch kind of thing. Promises, Harvest House, Crazy Eights. They deal with it directly, but all the others also deal with aspects of that.
Sure.
We don't, as a community, though, don't have like a public response to that, do we? And that's where I'm kind of getting at. Do we need to start thinking about, as a community, taking some of the load off the nonprofits and the churches? I know that they do a fantastic job. I sit here in this seat and I talk to them every month, and I'm just humbled by how hard they fight this fight. But I have to tell you guys, they're wearing out, and they're not just the resources, but physically almost. So should we start thinking about, as a community, having a public response to this problem? She's looking at that first.
We've talked about this a couple times now, and I'm happy to. But
yeah, we've talked. Victoria and I mentioned this before because I know this is an issue that troubles her.
I mean, it doesn't hurt to start a conversation, and we've now got we've redone our committees at the council level. We're down to 6, I think, very good committees that can actually meet and do things, and we've got the community intergovernmental relations committee would be one, and then there's a community
hasn't met
service
for
one.
years, and so we've restructured. That's a great point, Adam. We've restructured our committees and just did our pick yours, and so we've got our committee assignments, and I think ultimately it's about conversations. And it's one thing for me as an individual to sit and listen to your show when a nonprofit is on, or an individual who specializes in whatever area in the nonprofit world. But it's another to say, let's have a task force. Let's have representatives from the school district, because it impacts kids in their learning and whether or not they're getting, home meals at home, and if they have a roof over their head. There's partners throughout the community that can sit at the table and say, what is not necessarily the city's response, but community.
So
and
that's
it's
what it
not
meant.
just going to be.
I don't mean like public funding and such, because that's so problematic, and we've talked about that too. But talk about just a community response that the city council could be a leader of, a moderator of, so to speak. Same with the school board. Same with maybe some business leaders. Same with Jennifer and over at Harvest House and Debbie at Promises and Lisa at Crazy Eights. They would give you a lot of expert opinion on that.
Meals on Wheels knows of, senior population that's, when they don't have air conditioning or they don't have heaters in the winter. Now, and there are these there are connections that like we have a victims assistance coordinator that works within the PD. Her name's Stephanie, and she's phenomenal, and she is a wealth of knowledge. And when she gets, last year, a individual had been brought to my attention, and I'd seen her personally, so I stopped and visited with her, and I was picking up that maybe she needed some help. And I contacted Stephanie and said, would you, what do we do in these situations? And so she went and made connection with that citizen, found out her story and how we could help her, and found a distant relative that was living in Florida. And we have wonderful staff members in our community that go above and beyond, and they know and understand these connections and find ways to help people that aren't on the front page, every single day. There's a lot of these things that are going on. And so I think it's about having these people sit at the same table and saying, how can we help you? How do we help each other? Because if they're feeling worn out, if they're feeling like their area is getting completely tapped or, they're getting drained to the point of they can't make the impact that they still want to make, then how can another entity help them?
That's what struck me is, they're struggling to keep up financially and with food and all this, but what struck me is they're personally struggling because they're having to say no more often.
It's hard.
And, and one of the things I've been asking them on the show is, how do you not take that home with you? You had to turn down somebody, and I've seen it, honestly, a couple of them get tears in their eyes sitting in these seats. And
can't imagine.
Yeah, and I just think, as a community, we've so relied upon the churches and these outfits because they're so good at it, and they do such a great job.
Somebody's going to deal with that because we've got a great community.
And we do, but we're not a little town anymore.
But we need to be more coordinated.
Yes.
We need to have structure so that we know it's getting picked up in one way or another, and not just hoping that somebody will, because we have been so blessed with the network that we've had. You're right. You don't want to take it for granted. What can you do to be a little bit more proactive? And I think utilizing these committees, having conversations, and
I'm not even really advocating for public funding of services yet. When I say yet, it's problematic, not just financially for y'all, but it also, you got other issues. These are faith-based institutions, and
right.
And you'd have to navigate through.
Well, and ultimately, this isn't our money. It's the people's money.
Right.
And so we are just stewards of that, and ensuring the decisions that we make benefit the whole community. And so that's a struggle, is it's not just my money. I'm a tax-paying citizen and I contribute to this pot, but it's not mine to do and make decisions as I will.
Adam, do you think your email would light up if you said, let's have a shelter near Old Town?
I think we'd hear about it, I'm sure.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, they'd be throwing rocks at you as you leave the meeting. And I'm not advocating that either, because I understand the problems that come with that. And people would ask me, would you want to live next to one? Well, the answer is no, I would not. And so I can't be hypercritical.
And sometimes that's not even the answer, right? Because some people are homeless by choice. It's not illegal. You and I've talked about this. It's not illegal to be homeless. Some people are there, and we don't know everybody's story and what it is that put them in that position. Did they choose it? Is it family situation? Is it mental health? And so, I think striving to be the best community, a welcoming community, and publicizing those resources. I've told you before, and I think Robin does this. You've said of she keeps a baggie with crackers and water, and maybe you slip in a card of here's some additional resources. If it's food that your family needs, maybe Harvest House or Community Promises. If it's home, just knowing what is available in our town, so that not the same group is not always the one getting hit up.
But it's also, I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think it would be a good idea to have a task force.
I think so.
I'm going to ask your permission now. Can I mention that to these ladies that this is something y'all are considering? Or is that too,
I threw it out here.
Is that
I
is that not
think,
jumping the gun?
no, I think we should take it back to staff and ask our city manager, what is the probability of this? What does this look like? Who would be involved? It may not include a city council member necessarily, but it might include our victims assistant from PD or, I think sometimes I'm not even, like I said, we have 300 employees or something around that number. And so there's a lot of people that do things that might be a lot more amenable to
right. There'd have to be certain
bringing some meat to the table and not just me going, that's great. All right, team, go.
Well, there'd have to be some parameters. And people, because like go back to the tax issue, it's so easily distorted, maybe purposely distorted. I don't want people thinking you're looking for property for a shelter. That's not going to happen. I don't think having would I be opposed to having some sort of public funding? I know the problems that come with that. It'd be great, but I also know you have to navigate all the legal issues and whatnot. They'd probably have to have a referendum of sorts with the community and that kind of thing.
I have no idea.
Yeah, you'd have to ask your city attorney of that. Well, anyway, I look forward to that show Thursday. I always do, because God bless these people.
I know.
And they really do a lot. I mean, I don't know if any other community I know of has this level of nonprofit and church support for the community. Sure, again, it could be as simple as a nonprofit resource catalog that is given to those who ask. The funding for it would have to come from elsewhere, but a coordinated effort to publicize the resources available could go a long way. I bet. True. Public or private funding of that would not be hard to come up with. There'd be several generous people in this town who would put a few dollars towards that. I'd like to end up this last session because this is the first time I talked to Adam as a member. Have you enjoyed it so far?
Yes, I have.
Is your family all good with it?
So far, so good.
So Miss Martha isn't like,
She did say, it's taken a little more time than I thought it would. It's just, it's par for the course.
Yeah, because the spouses often probably feel it more than y'all do. You just kind of shrug it off when somebody gives you a kind of an uncomplimentary email, and she probably, takes it harder. I know if I served in public capacity like that, Robin would go after him with a shotgun or something. But you plan on doing this again, huh? Maybe.
Well, yeah, we're early on.
Yeah, so. I know. But
so far,
he
so
just
good.
started.
Yeah, but you're glad you did it.
Yes, I am. I'm very glad I did it, and I enjoy. I think we are working really well together.
I think so too.
Listening to each other's opinions, and
it's been a real blessing to the community. I can just can't reemphasize it enough to see the city council working in tandem. I know there's probably some elbows thrown in those private sessions. But that's politics, that's governing. It isn't Sunday school. But when you come out of that private session, you get up there and y'all vote and take care of business. It's been what we want from a city council. We're glad that we're seeing what we expect. And as far as another go-round, how about you, Miss Victoria? Are you going to run again?
I would, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. I would love to run again. It would be such an honor to continue serving in this capacity.
I don't think anybody's surprised by that answer.
I'm sure not.
So
I love the work. I love the community, and I would be thrilled to continue serving. So you can count on me come February to be there at 8 a.m. knocking on Miss Amanda's door. Can I file yet?
Oh my! Well, you could probably have a cup of coffee first, but
she will not let you in the building. If it's filing day and you're up, you have to stand out there with all the other potential candidates.
But you got 3 weeks to do that.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I'll be there.
Yeah, you'll be there.
At the moment I can possibly turn it in because I'm that eager. And then I'll go have my cup of coffee at 12.
Right. Well, I don't think anybody's surprised about your desire to run again. You couldn't have put this much effort to go, I'm walking away from it. No, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Well, yeah, I did.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, I did. No, but I just knew that.
I love it. I love the work. I love serving, and I would be honored to continue to do so. So, yes, sir, you can count on me filing for the next. So, come May, all the odds will be up 1, 3, and 5. So, Dan and I, and then we'll see who files for place 3.
Which is Ronnie's currently serving in interim basis, but he's not planning on running again.
That's not my understanding that he would. I think he's
done his service.
He's done his time.
Yeah, I can't imagine him running again. And I think it's great that he's back on the board at this interim basis because it was after that, mayor's race. It was kind of tough, and
Yeah.
so feelings were hurt. And here he is. He's like, "No, I'm willing to step
And
up
we all
one more
just
time."
work so well together. It's
Yeah.
it's a fun time to be a part of this council because we're respectful. We listen to each other. We have good discussions that are healthy for the community. It's good to have talk through things and trust each other's opinions and input. It's been enjoyable.
Well, this
I'm
has
really
been
proud of
enjoyable,
us as
too.
a council.
It's been enjoyable to have you on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to hopefully clarify a few things and kind of get some insight what you have to deal with, particularly for our friends in Austin. Hey, they're driving me a little crazy sometimes, but that's fine. Like I said, I've been promoting that show on Thursday with the ladies. Next week, I'm going to have BISD on. Yeah. I'm not sure who yet. Michaela Hill tells me usually 3 or 4 days in advance, or just going to be somebody from this department or that department. So
Thursday is North Texas Day of Giving.
Right.
And so a number of our nonprofits will be participating in that. And basically, if you go through that North Texas Day of Giving website and donate to your nonprofit of choice, there's usually a matching element. So I strongly encourage you, if you participate in supporting our nonprofits, do so on that day because it's a big push for them.
Well, that's what the whole show Thursday.
They're going to be plugging themselves.
Yes, and they along with that National Giving Day, it's kind of hey, you want to give to us. What I like about these ladies though, if they said, well, I can only give to one, and somebody else got it, they're all happy.
Yeah,
it
takes us all.
Oh,
it's a whole village.
It's inspiring to watch. So it's a great show, and I hope y'all are able to turn in.
We will.
All right,
Thanks,
y'all.
Mr. Allard.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, thanks for coming. We'll see y'all next Thursday.